As the new president of the Eurogroup, you've been relatively positive about the outlook for European growth. And I'm wondering, especially after your meetings here, what threat to growth you think the U.S. trade policies are going to be?
The good thing about Europe and the euro area, particularly these days, is that this is not a concern anymore for these G20 meetings. We've done our work. We went a great deal through the crisis to strengthen our euro area, to take all benefits of the single largest market in the world. And we take the challenges, the outside challenges, very seriously as well. So we've been in a constant dialogue with the U.S. administration on these issues of trade. We think it's very important to keep our economies open. If there's one single thing that economists agree upon is that free and fair trade is quite positive for our economies, and we want to remain with such a view also in politics.
Is there any common ground among the other members against the U.S. at this point?
I mean, it's not really against the U.S. We are discussing policies. We have still to get the full blow of these policies also. There are issues that are on the table. We want to stand by principles of open, rules-based, multilateral discussions. This is the way we portray issues also within Europe. As you know, we've been always discussing on economic institutions over the euro, and it's very important to take this approach also to these conversations.
You've also been concerned about U.S. tax reform. Who does that potentially hurt and why?
Well, you know, the tax competition is always has always a risk of being a race to the bottom type of issue. We don't want this, and we want to again in the same multilateral level have a very constructive discussion on how we can get there. Tax reforms are important instruments for economic policy within countries. We don't dispute that. It's just a matter of seeing how it will work together so that we can make progress also on that front.
As president of the Eurogroup, what's your main goal this year? Is it basically banking union?
The banking union is a top priority. We are engaging in very deep discussions among member states. We have the summit this week, the Euro Summit, which needs to be seen a little bit as a pit stop to June, and certainly completing the banking union with all three pillars will be a great achievement for us this year.
Do you think you've made significant progress on risk sharing ahead of the June meeting?
We have to put the perspectives together. We have been doing a great job in risk reduction. It's very important to notice that the cross-section of member states today, we have the lowest dispersion in fiscal stance in our countries. The same thing on the external position. We have surplus and deficit countries, but it is the level of harmonization we have today is the lowest degree of dispersion ever, and this is very important to note, because this is the result of the structural reforms many countries did, all countries actually did, and also on the reforms we made at the union level. So we have to take that on board in order to face the further risk-sharing measures that we may still need to engage. Yes, the goal to June is to have a more and enhanced, detailed roadmap, and this to be our map, our plan to the future. We are certainly going to reach an agreement on the sequencing of the reforms and on the way to implement them over time, because we know this has to be the case.
How does the Italian election, the uncertainty over who will govern Italy, affect your timetable?
Well, Europe is having elections all days. I mean, we have many elections in European countries, and sometimes governments take longer to build. I mean, take the example of the Netherlands or Germany. So we are quite confident that in Italy we will have a solution coming out of obviously democratic process, and my goal is to align with all governments, to be the moderator in some sense. It's not that I am too anxious about it. It's just a matter of allowing the institutions in Italy also to work and to come up with a government that certainly will follow up on the commitments of Italy in the European construction process.
Well, given the condition of Italian banks, does that add any urgency to the task?
It's important to notice that Italy has a government. It has been doing a great job also on the restructuring of the banking sector. For example, I may cite two indicators: the reduction of NPLs of Italian banks and the increase in capital also for those banks. Actually, these two dimensions are also common to all European countries. It's always important to notice that since the crisis, European banks put in more than 560 billion euros in capital, and the reduction on NPLs has been quite substantial, 25% reduction in 2017 alone, and we need to do more, but we are doing a lot. And Italian authorities are also very much committed to that, so I think this is something that we can also think positive about.
Greece is always on the agenda of a Eurogroup president. You've released the latest tranche. Do you think that you will need a backup standby facility when you get to August? And also at the same time, where are we on debt relief talks? I know the technical discussions have started.
Yes, the technical discussions started already. We are looking forward to Greece to exit the program in August and to stand on its own feet. It's very important that the Greek authorities take on the ownership of the economic model. We are already seeing to unveil and to build up in Greece. The fiscal position is a very strong position now. Also, in terms of openness, Greece is doing a lot of progress. We expect the Greek government in April to present a growth model to the Eurogroup that will be the basis for the future political dimension in terms of economic reforms on Greece, and it's very important for the Greek authorities to take that on their own hands. This is what is key at this stage. Debt relief will be also in the package, the possibility of having, if needed, some debt relief. And we always hope that this is not the case if the Greek economy is successful, but we are prepared to deal with that issue as well.
Luis de Guindos appears to be a popular choice for vice president of the ECB, but there are still criticisms of the process because there's only one woman on the governing council. Would you anticipate trying to make changes, particularly ahead of the selection of the new president?
Well, we have to be attentive to that dimension. As you know, the process is transparent, is competitive. Countries present their own candidates. I will do my job in terms of, at least in talks with colleagues to generate a more diverse set of candidates for the next appointments. But it's very important to stress that this process is on the hands of the governments, and each of one of them should look at this dimension of the process. It's a contest that is based on merit. We have very good women and men in Europe to fill in the following vacancies, and I'm looking forward to diversity also to show up in that dimension.
Obviously, you have a big choice to make in the next year. For you, for Portugal, I know you wouldn't want to say who you would vote for, but would Jens Weidmann be automatically disqualified just because he is German?
No, of course not. And we need to take on policies and, of course, on the qualifications, on the skills of each one of the candidates. And as I said before, we have a very good and long list of candidates that I'm sure will show up in the running up to that appointment.